Bill Maher, leftist political commentator and stand-up comedian, really came to national prominence when he hosted Politically Incorrect. He then moved to HBO, and for years he has been hosting Real Time. And of course, he presents politics from a political left slant. But over the past few years, he has begun to break away from what we would call the typical leftist narrative. And he's really pushing back on a lot of the wokeism. And that has got people on the left upset with him. He has pushed back on things like, should we really be pushing children into gender re-identification training and surgery? Can we have a timeout here, back this train up a little bit, and have a conversation before we just start giving into the whims of 8-year-olds? Because if that was the case, hey, when I was 8, I wanted to be a pirate. Thank God my parents didn't schedule me for peg leg and eye removal surgery. So there are certain areas where he is really starting to call out the lib lunacy when it comes to things like the complete revisionist history which is being presented, and the fact that the COVID madness and lockdowns and mandates really were beyond the pale. They were over the top and an affront to civil liberty. For a long time, Bill Maher thinks of himself, I still believe, as a libertarian. You do what you do, we'll do what we do, etc., etc. But he lost it with the election of Donald Trump. He really, to this day, is still suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. And he can't get off it. And whenever he starts to present an idea or he begins to advocate on things like, you know what, we cannot present history in presentism, which I thought was a phenomenal commentary and monologue on his part, and, going after censoring culture and just censoring in general, that he considers himself still to be a classic liberal, except he bought into it hook, line, and sinker that Donald Trump colluded with Russia, and somehow they just weren't able to prove it. Well, whenever he gets in trouble with the left that he's moderated too far right, he immediately goes to his number one punching bag, which is Donald Trump, so that, he can come out heavy on the attack and, talk about the loons that support Donald Trump. And that gets him back in good graces with people on the left. And he's into this thing now where he's trying to bridge the gap. We got to come together as a country. We got to be unified. Okay. And, he had Ruben on his podcast, and the other night on Real Time, he had country singing sensation, legend, Trace Adkins. And he asked Trace who won the election in 2020. And of course, Trace, and that, I wish I had a voice that deep. His voice is perfect for radio. Joe Biden. And, right away, of course, Bill Maher. Oh, thank God you're not one of those Trump supporters that you actually really, you got it. He did win the election. And Bill Maher went on to say that, we got to stop dividing the country over the people who supported Donald Trump versus Donald Trump. And the only ones, the supporters of Donald Trump that we still need to go after, though, are the people that believe there was something funny about that election. So let me get this straight. We've got questions, which of course I can't say in this venue and this platform because YouTube has said that's a big no-no. I got a little timeout from YouTube here a few weeks ago because they went back a year and a half in my video library and found something that I had said back in December of 2020, and just this past, I think it was August, late August, early September, said we found this, you get a 1-week timeout. Well, really? You'd pull the video out and wouldn't even known it was there. But you can't question anything about the integrity of the 2020 election. Despite concerns and things that have been brought up, you can't talk about it. But Bill Maher can still cling to Russian collusion when it has been absolutely debunked and disproven. But as the night wore on, of course, Trace Adkins, and let me just say this, there's some of his music that I've heard that I really like. Country music is not my thing. It's not my genre. About the only song of his that I really, really know is a song called You're Gonna Miss This. And, as a dad with 4 kids, as they were getting older, I would listen to that song. And it was a good song. I remember when he was on Celebrity Apprentice. I remember when he won Celebrity Apprentice. And of course, Bill Maher took a shot at that. Yeah, like Trump actually gave that money to charity. And Trace just kind of smiled. He didn't say anything. And it's like, well, did he or didn't he? Did he or didn't he? But he just smiled. He didn't say anything. He let the attacks and the punches come against Trump. And I don't know. Maybe Trace Adkins, though he at one time voted for Donald Trump and supported his policies, maybe he doesn't now. Maybe he wanted to go on Bill Maher's Real Time to be the punching bag, because that is exactly what he became. And he didn't push back when he should have pushed back. He didn't speak up when he should have spoken. Now, maybe that says something about Trace Adkins and where he is. He likes to make his B westerns, which I've watched a couple of them. They're not great. But I'll tell you, during the pandemic shutdown, when Hollywood stopped producing everything, at least there was some, Trace and his guys were making some westerns. Again, wow, a couple of them are really not good at all. But again, I'm sure people watch this and think, wow, the production quality of this. I get it. Hey, this isn't my gig. It's not what I do for a living. I'm a pastor, but I've got a political side of me. And rather than give it out in the pulpit, I do it here. This is where I get it out of my system, so I don't do it in the pulpit. And of course, my real forte is radio. But right now, thanks to Hurricane Ian, we're solely doing this right now. That all said, Trace is music. He's in entertainment. Obviously, he rubs shoulders and has to do business with a lot of people who have a very, very liberal worldview on everything. I get it. But as the night wore on, the other guests kept zeroing in on Trace. They got this MAGA guy in front of them. And Trace just kind of sat there. But at one point, he finally said, I ain't apologizing.
I think a lot of Republicans who don't like Trump want forgiveness, but they don't want to repent.
I ain't asked forgiveness for shit.
Right, and you shouldn't have to. You didn't do anything.
It's not personal, it's policy.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely the right answer there. And of course, you hear Bill Maher say, well, you don't have to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. It was all that evil guy, Trump. He was the one that did it. And of course, now Trace just going to sit there. He's not going to say anything. And Trace, again, I don't know if you were there to try to do some kind of PR for, please forgive us, Trumpers. We're not going to ask you to forgive us, but, we did what we thought was right at the time, but we're going to let you guys now crap on us, because that's exactly what followed. The woman sitting there decided to tell Trace, well, yeah, you, all Trump supporters, you do owe us an apology.
And so when we say it's not personal, it is personal. And I do think people who supported Trump and who enabled Trump do have something to apologize for and do have a lot to repent for. A man who calls countries whole countries, who tells Congress people of color to go back to where they came from, who calls women pigs, who makes fun of their menstrual cycles. I could go on and on and on. That, and that people still follow him and think that's still okay, and that they, that, well, that is something that we have to talk about.
Oh, where do I start with this one? And again, Trace just kind of sits there. He's listening. Now, I don't know if that's, his Southern upbringing that, you just politely nod. I don't know if he's trying to show that Trump supporters are reasonable and are willing to listen to the other side. All that, okay. But that doesn't mean you just become a doormat and take it. That was the thing that the left will never understand, why we love Donald Trump. And it's the only person on the left who got it back in 2016 was, of all people, Michael Moore. Michael Moore knew immediately why people, working class people especially, gravitated toward Donald Trump. It wasn't because he stoked their fears. It wasn't because he riled up the racism in people. They had been literally, forgive me for saying it this way, screwed. They had lost their jobs, their towns had become ghost towns, the industries had pulled out, had gone overseas. They were having trouble making ends meet. When, especially among married couples, when the financial problems happen, if there were already even some other things going on in that marriage, the financial problems really become that real stress and that real relationship breaker. And some of the and Michael Moore said passionately, he said, these people, they've lost everything. They've got lousy health care and even Obamacare, about the only thing they can get is a Percocet, and that's about it. And that's at the bronze level, and they can't afford that. And they can't climb out of the poverty that they're in, and the jobs have gone away and the opportunities have gone away. But the one thing they've still got is a vote. And here comes this guy who's the political outsider, and they look at him like he's a Molotov cocktail, and they can throw him into Washington and watch him blow up the whole system. And that is exactly what they're going to do. And they did. And he did. For years, Republicans did exactly what Trace Adkins did on Real Time with Bill Maher. They would come out and they would say the right things. They would so-called stand for the right things that Republicans rally around: God, faith, country, low taxes, for the most part, a pro-life position, responsible government, etc., etc., etc. But then they would be guests on political commentary shows, and the liberal hosts and the liberal politicians would just pummel and pummel and pummel them, and they would just sit there and smile. Or you'd be a Mitt Romney debating Barack Obama, and you would just give that phony fake laugh with your plastic Ken doll hair and didn't punch back. Here came Donald Trump, and he did something that people like myself and Rush Limbaugh and some real conservatives had really been screaming for. Could we see some fight in our Republican candidates? Could we see that really you've got some conviction, and that you will get to Washington and you will actually fight for what it is that you say you're campaigning on? And here came Donald Trump, and he basically looked at the media and said, "You're fake news," and he went after them doggedly. He went after Hillary Rotham Clinton doggedly, and that was what we loved. My son, who does not share some of my political views, and he certainly was not a supporter of Donald Trump, and we had this conversation one day, and he said, "Dad, I think I get it." He said, I think I get where you and half the country are coming from. That for years and for decades, you are constantly being lectured to by the left that you weren't good people, about your views on, that anything that you did or said that was remotely that they didn't approve of, that somehow you were racist, you were a this phobe, a that phobe, and if you are really a good American, you wouldn't complain about paying more taxes because we've got to do more of these social programs, and you were constantly being insulted and beaten up every day. And here came a guy who, on your behalf, punched back. Boom. That was it. Trace, you could have said something like that. Trace, you could have said, "Hey, whoa. Slow your roll there. Before you start going after the things that my guy said, let's talk about the things that your guy is saying that's creating real problems right now." Nobody went out and attacked Rosie O'Donnell because Donald Trump way back in the day called her a pig. Nobody went out on the attack against Megyn Kelly. And by the way, Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump have since mended their fences, and Megyn Kelly is actually supportive of Donald Trump. You left that little tidbit out there. What you're really talking about is he said some mean things. Well, you know what? Joe Biden has done some mean things. We have a vile, reprehensible individual whose crack addict son was being thrown out there by the president to bilk countries for millions to give them access. And you say nothing about that. You say nothing about the fact that this guy is literally a demagogue. That's your word there, Bill. You keep calling Trump a demagogue. I'm sorry. You know what we had with Donald Trump? We had 4 years of peace and prosperity. You know what we don't have now? We don't have any prosperity. We've got an out-of-control recession, and it's going to get worse after the midterms, and the gas prices are going to go back up. Oh, and by the way, this lunatic is pushing us toward nuclear war with Russia. But you're worried about a comment Donald Trump made? Look, there were times he'd make comments and I'll go, oh, Mr. President, please don't say that. You know what? I don't read him. I liked what he did. I liked where he was going. I liked the positions and the policies. So Trace was right. He didn't owe anybody an apology, but he needed to push back on that liberal twit when and that's the thing that really just incenses half the country. That it's not just you call us MAGA, which means you've inferred we're like some type of terrorist group, and we have now seen all types of hate crimes being launched against conservative people. Media's real quiet about that. Where's your apology, honey, for the comments that Joe Biden constantly makes that vilifies half this nation? Calling us names, that the pandemic was this was a problem of the unvaccinated. This is unvaccinated. You're killing people. Which was complete and total bullhock. I don't see you demanding that Joe Biden apologize for that. And because you're a Biden supporter, should you apologize to me for supporting that? Trace, I'm a country boy and I love my country and I believe in doing the right thing. You did the wrong thing there. You sat there, you smiled that old shucks smile, and you took it. You didn't have to be nasty about how you push back, but you should have pushed back. But then again, maybe you're there to take it so that the entertainment world would continue to do business with you. Because after all, are you worried that maybe if they think you really are a Trump supporter, you might affect your career? Pretty sad when a comedian like a Rob Schneider is willing to say, you know what? If it costs me my career, it costs me my career. I'm more concerned about my country. Same thing with a Kanye West. Trace, are you telling me Kanye West has deeper convictions and more manhood than you? Disappointed in you, Trace. Disappointed in you. Pastor Marty is on The Drive at 5.
We're on a mission from God.